Hello. Hi, it's Carla. How is everybody today? I am coming to you live. Just trying to make my phone steady. Ladies, I've been having some issues. I got a brand new computer and I'm trying to connect everything, and I've been told I've been freezing up a lot and not being heard. So if you come on and you're having issues hearing me, seeing me, if things go, if things start going all frozen, if I freeze up or anything like that, don't be alarmed. Like I said, I've been having difficulties. So as you come on, ladies, say hi. Let me know who's on with me, and if you ever have questions, just let me know. So for those of you who don't know me, that are possibly new to me, my name is Carla Metzdorf. I am admin to this group, Overcoming Anxiety for Stressed Out Moms Who've Had Enough, and I'm also an anxiety coach. And what I'm coming on today to talk to you about are having expectations. When do you expect to overcome anxiety? And that is a question that I actually posed in the group yesterday. Hi, Patrice. Hi, Terry. Hi, good. Now I'm seeing comments. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. All right, I have the group up on my computer next to me, just in case I don't. Hi, Cindy. Yeah, everybody say hi. So let's talk about, actually, I don't see myself in the group. Isn't that special? Okay. So when do you expect to overcome anxiety? First, I want to give a definition because I love to give definitions when I do my lives, because I want you and I to be on the same page. Now, I understand you might be listening to other people in different, on YouTube or in different Facebook groups, and they might be saying other things about anxiety, and I don't want you to get confused, but I want you to understand what I'm talking about when I say things and when I talk. So, whoops, I have a new stand too. See, I have all these new things. I'm just trying to get everything to work right. So, having an expectation. What does it mean to live in expectation, to have an expectation? Okay. So, when we have an expectation, basically, when you expect something, you feel that it's something necessary to happen. You feel that it's what you expect to happen. Well, I don't want to use the word expect. It's what you feel. It's something that you're planning on happening, that you feel is necessary to have it, because that's what you want to happen. So, in other words, I'm just going to give an example here. Something very benign, let's say you expect flowers for Valentine's Day. You just expect it, right? And what happens if you don't get it? You get all disappointed, right? Because you expect it. In other words, it's what you feel is necessary, maybe to bring you happiness. It would be great if my husband, my partner, came home with flowers. As a matter of fact, it's Valentine's Day and he better do it. So it's like you have this expectation on your spouse that he needs to bring you home flowers. And you seeing these flowers when you expect them is going to bring you all the happiness in the world. Does that make sense, ladies? Can you put a 1 in the chat for me if that makes sense to you? Because that's what expectation is. It's like these little beliefs we put in our head, okay? Let's call it a belief. It's like we believe that if this happens, okay, I will be happy. You put this expectation. All right, great. Thank you for that. Thank you. Now, sometimes we also talk about anticipation. We anticipate things, right? And people like to use those words intermittently, but they don't exactly mean the same thing. So how do I explain anticipation? When you are anticipating something, it's more of, just trying to think of a better way of explaining it. It's like how you mentally feel about, okay, all right. Let's go back to the flowers. For me it's harder to explain anticipation. I don't know why, but I'm going to explain it with an example. Anticipation is more like, let's go back to flowers, okay? So you expect flowers for Valentine's Day, right? But you're anticipating receiving those flowers with a lot of excitement. You can't wait, right? So the expectation is, I'm going to get flowers, but the anticipation is you waiting for it. It's how you're preparing yourself to receive those flowers. Does that make sense, ladies? Can you give me a 2 if that makes sense? I know I didn't really give so much of a verbal definition there, but can you understand what I just said about anticipation? So it's like a mental preparedness of how you're going to how you feel about this thing that you expect. So in the group, I posted something. Thank you, Candy, for that. Okay, thanks, Terry, for letting me know. Yeah, ladies, always let me know if I make sense, if you need more clarity, because I don't want anyone thinking, what is she talking about? I want you to understand all this because this is important. Thank you, Nicole. Okay, so expectations. So when we live in expectation, okay, we could be setting ourselves up, right? But let's apply expectations to anxiety, right? Now, you've heard me talk about mindset, and if you haven't, well, mindset. Mindset really is your beliefs, your thoughts, your attitude, your expectations, okay? It's how you're being in any given time. You know, like it's how your mind is in any given time. What you're thinking, what's going on, okay? And your expectations is part of that. So our expectations can keep us in that anxiety cycle. So in the group, what is today's date? Thursday. Monday, I posted, these days are flying. Monday, I posted a little something about my sleep, okay? Now, it wasn't about sleep. It was about my expectation. Because what happened was, I started having a lot of stress in my life. And that stress kept me up at night, okay? I was the typical, I'm so stressed out, and it kept me up at night. My mind was going, and I was worrying, and I had these body symptoms, and they were getting the best of me, and it kept me up. Then what happened was, when it happened too often, all right, when I was spending too many nights of not sleeping well, then I started focusing on the fact I wasn't sleeping. I started focusing on how I felt, the thoughts that were going through my head, and I really wasn't sleeping. Like, I couldn't get myself to go to sleep when I wanted to, when I used to be able to do that. So now sleep became my issue, all right? So now I expected to not sleep every night because I wasn't sleeping well. So when we have an expectation, okay, basically, we're kind of predicting the future. Like, we're saying, okay, past experience is telling me I can't sleep anymore. Like, I'm not getting enough sleep. So am I going to sleep tonight? Am I going to sleep? I don't know. Am I going to sleep? And the more I did that, the more anxious I got. Now I started anticipating not sleeping. Well, I expected to not sleep, but what I was anticipating was the anxiety. I expected to not sleep and feel those anxiety feelings. And to the point, it got so bad that the sun would set. Seriously, the sun would set, right? And I would immediately start getting these anxiety feelings. And it got so bad that I would have panic attacks. And because that meant to me, oh gosh, I'm going to be going to bed in like 4 or 5 hours and I'm not going to sleep. I just totally expected it. Because it became like something that I kept predicting, telling myself is going to happen. So it became like a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak, okay? Candy, what did you say? I just Googled that, and this is pretty good. Expectation implies a belief or prediction about a certain outcome. Yeah, absolutely. While anticipation suggests a feeling of looking forward to or preparing for an event. Oh, you're checking up on me, Candy. Okay, well, you can challenge me if that's what you want to do. I mean, yeah, that's fine. So I'm glad. That's okay. I'm good with that. I do know my stuff. I mean, I've experienced this. I've lived it. So, and I know having an expectation can really hinder your results, which is why I had to come on and talk about it. I wasn't really taking it that way, Candy. I'm sorry. I didn't make it sound like that. No, I don't. I know you're not checking up on me. I get it. Because otherwise, why would you be in my group and why would you follow me if you didn't think I knew what I was talking about, right? So don't worry about it. That's okay. Hi, Paula. How are you? So, okay. With that said, so expectations, okay? They work against us because what we do, okay, unless you're expecting something good, okay? So if what happens is we get really disappointed when we expect things from other people, okay? Let's go that route first. If we expect things from other people, we want them to deliver. So let's just say, again, let's go with something really benign. We want a hug from our daughter, our son. But instead of hugging us, they walk right by us and give us attitude. So we might get disappointed, right? We expected a hug. We didn't get that hug. Instead, we got attitude, so we got disappointed. Does that make sense? Okay. So, when it comes to anxiety, okay, you might say, well, I posted that question in the group yesterday. When do you expect to overcome anxiety? Because I know a lot of you have been dealing with anxiety for many, 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 many years. All right? And you learn tools, you learn strategies, you're learning all kinds of things to overcome anxiety, whether my group or whoever else you're following, because I know I'm not the only person you're following. I'm not that naive. I understand that you're in other groups and you're talking to other people, you go to counselors, and I understand that, all right? So you're learning a lot of stuff. So you expect to overcome anxiety. Like, why shouldn't I, right? I mean, I've had anxiety for 20 years. I've gone to so many counselors, professionals. I've been on medication. I've tried so many things, and I'm still like this. So the fact you're not over this, right, is a letdown. You're disappointed. You're frustrated because you expected and it didn't deliver. Give me a 3 if that makes sense. Give me a 3 if that's what you're feeling. It's okay to be honest. I know that's what you're feeling. But listen, okay? Your expectations, all right? Okay, thank you. Thank you for being honest. Okay. You have to understand. Let's talk about anxiety here. So, anxiety is something, and I know a lot of you, it doesn't feel this way for you. I mean, especially after reading your post yesterday, a lot of you feel like you're never going to overcome this. You still feel that this way, regardless of what I've been telling you, regardless if you're watching my lives or whatever podcasts or things you've been reading on YouTube, you still don't believe it because you don't see it happening. So I get it. But you have to understand it is a process, okay? And having the expectation of, I'm just going to listen to this live. I'm just going to listen to this podcast. I'm going to go on YouTube and listen to this person, okay? And if I just listen and I get the information, I'll be fine, right? But it's not that simple, okay? Information is just information until you implement it. Now I understand. You were told if I breathe and I use breathing techniques, I'll be okay, right? So you practice some breathing. You did it once, twice, maybe you did it for a week, and guess what? You still have anxiety. Therefore, it doesn't work. Does that make sense, ladies? Give me a 4 if you resonate with that. If you were told something worked, you did it a little bit here and there, it didn't work, so you kind of blew it off as it doesn't work. Give me a 4 if that happened to you. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you for being honest. Yeah. But ladies, you have to know this is a process. Anything that you learn from me or anywhere else, nothing happens overnight, okay? That's not how this works. So living in the expectation of, I'll just watch this, I'll just listen to this, I'll just apply this, and boom, I'll be done. Okay? It's a letdown. And what that does is it makes you so discouraged, so disappointed that you stay in the anxiety cycle. All right? Because it's not giving you the confidence that you can overcome this. It's telling you, I did what you told me to do, and it didn't work. But the thing and the reason is that you have to let go of outcomes. You have to let go of outcomes. See, the thing is, when we expect something, we put a time frame in our heads, right? We tell ourselves, okay, I want this to happen. This is the thing that I expect. I expect to be in this group, listen to all these like trainings, okay? Apply them, and I will be over anxiety and like a month. Okay, let's just say that. Okay, so you gave yourself this time frame. Okay, so here you are. You're listening to the lives. You're trying to do, exactly what I tell you to do, but yet you're not over it. You see a little change here and there. You see how this can work, but you're not over it, so therefore it doesn't work. So you tell yourself you'll be like this forever. So now you have this expectation that this will never work. It's just, I'll be like this forever. You can't overcome this. And the thing is, that's entirely not the truth at all. Ladies, I had debilitating anxiety. Debilitating. I was not functioning. I was on 4 different medications at once to get me out of bed and to function. All right? Everything that I teach you in the group, all these live trainings, is what I did. I did to overcome anxiety. But it happened over time. It happened with consistent effort over time. And it does work. It does work. There are things that you need to do to make it work. I've done other live trainings on that, like what you need to overcome anxiety, but it's a certain mindset, okay? In other words, you have to make the decision, all right? You have to give yourself grace, and you have to have patience, and you have to let go of outcomes. If you put a time frame on the things that you expect, what you're doing is you're putting pressure on yourself. So let's go back to my not sleeping, okay? So what I did was I put pressure on myself. I expected at first to get in bed and sleep like I used to. I didn't take into account that I was experiencing anxiety and I was under a lot of stress, and that was going to affect my sleep. I didn't understand how all that worked. So then I expected to not sleep because that's what past experience is telling me, that I'm not sleeping now. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't understand how to get back to that. Does that make sense, ladies? Are you with me so far? So, I would get into bed totally expecting not to sleep. But how do you go to bed with the expectation of not sleeping and think, how am I going to sleep? Like, I had to figure that out. So what I learned, okay, is that you need to let go of expectations. You need to let go of outcomes. You need to stop telling yourself that this is how it has to be. That is putting pressure on yourself. The more I expected, okay, to not sleep, I got exactly what I expected because I was putting pressure on myself. So I would go to bed anticipating anxiety because that's the feeling that I got from this expectation. I expected to not sleep, therefore I anticipated not sleeping with anxiety. Anticipatory anxiety. Does that make sense? Can you put a 5 in the chat if it makes sense to you, if you're following along? Another example is if you're somebody who, let's say, all of a sudden, one day you're driving. Okay, thank you, Jessica. One day you're driving and you have a panic attack while you're driving, right? So all of a sudden now, you don't want to drive anymore. Because when you drive, you have a panic attack. So every time you think of driving, you think, I'm going to have a panic attack. And that's all you can focus on. But what if I have a panic attack when I'm driving? And how that made you feel. Now, panic attacks are extremely scary feeling. Some of you have had them, some of you have not. You feel like you're dying. You feel like you're having a heart attack. You feel like you're going out of your mind. It becomes almost impossible to drive. So it's no wonder you may stop driving. So you're expecting to have a panic attack the next time you drive, and you're anticipating the feelings. That making sense, ladies? Like, are you really understanding how expectation can keep you in the anxiety cycle because we expect to feel a certain way. We expect to be a certain way. And the more we put this pressure on ourselves to be a certain way, okay, that pressure keeps us where we are. If you're just coming on, ladies, make sure you watch this from the beginning, all right? I'm talking about expectations and how expectations can keep you in that anxiety cycle. All right, and how we need to let go of some of these expectations that we have of ourselves and even of other people, let's say, because they put stress on us, and let go of outcomes. All right, so okay, so have you ever heard of shoulding? Shoulding, shoulding, okay? Shoulding is really putting a lot of demands on yourself or others. In other words, you are saying you should fall asleep by this time. You should be able to get in that car and drive. Is that making sense? You shouldn't feel this way. You should be a better mother. How many of you have done that to yourselves? You should. I should be over this anxiety by now. I don't understand why I'm not. I should be over this already. So shoulding is putting like an unrealistic demand on yourself. And when you do that, you make it worse. Constantly, yes, a lot, me, yeah. So you ladies understand this. We put these shoulds, or even must, I must, or I ought to. When we do that, we make it harder on ourselves to do this. So the things that you're learning, okay, it's not that they don't work, okay? What you should do, what has to be done, okay, is understanding the mindset, okay, and understanding what it, have this awareness, okay. This is really I just see what's in the group, okay. What needs to happen is to understand this, having this awareness that I'm being hard on myself. I am putting these demands on myself. And when they don't happen in my time frame, okay, when things are not going about the way I want them to, I get frustrated, I get mad, I get disappointed. All right? So you add more fuel to the fire. See, stress, anxiety, none of that exists until we call it into action. Did that make sense, ladies? Stress and anxiety doesn't exist until we call it into action. In other words, we need to take responsibility for the things that we're telling ourselves and for the way we are responding in life. Now, some of you may not like what you just heard because, in other words, yes, you are responsible for the things that are going on in your life, how you're responding to them. And only you can change that. Nothing can change it, okay? There's no one who can change it but you. And I understand that you may have a living situation like where your environment is, and you might say, because of my living situation, because of how things are, I'm stuck the way I am. Okay, but you always have a choice to respond however you want. Even in tough times, you have a choice to respond. There are actions you can take. It may not be easy to do. Okay, I understand that things are hard. Hard is different for many people. Okay, that's why I go like this. It's very subjective. Okay, my timeliness of 5 months is exhausting. I don't want it to go on more, but I understand it takes time no one knows. Well, that's right, Holly. When you put a deadline, I said it before. I don't know if you were on when I said it. We can't put a deadline on when we're going to overcome this or anything. All right? If you put a deadline on it, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because what happens when you reach that deadline and you didn't meet it? What does that mean? That you're going to tell yourself, well, then this doesn't work. It's not possible. But that's not true. It's not true. But there are a lot of things I could ask you. Were you consistent in everything that you did? Ladies, it takes consistent effort. Now, I'm not saying that no one's trying, okay? But doing something here and there is not the same as every day, in every moment, having the awareness of, in this present time, I have a choice of what I get to do. There's 24 hours in a day, and in those 24 hours, you get to choose how you respond, regardless of what's going on in your life. And I know some of you have some pretty dire things that you're facing. I get it. I totally understand that. But it's still how you're responding to it. And what happens is when you start responding to things, okay, in a certain way, you start conditioning yourself, okay? You start, between your thinking and the way that you're responding, you condition yourself. So what becomes necessary is to change that response, change how you're talking to yourself, change, use words of, after awareness of that you're having these expectations that are causing you to stay in that anxiety cycle, all right? The next step, I guess, would really be to really get present, understand in the present time, I can respond differently. Okay, what am I expecting to happen here? What do I want in my present time? Well, I want to overcome anxiety. Well, that's great, okay? But it's not realistic that, boom, in a second, you're going to overcome anxiety, okay? It's a process. So what can you do in that present time that's going to get you closer to that? Am I responding to life in a way that's going to get me closer to that goal of overcoming anxiety? Or am I reacting, okay? Am I having this expectation that, and putting this pressure on myself and not giving myself grace, and I'm keeping myself stuck? I did not overcome insomnia, okay? Going back to my sleeping for a little bit. I overcame insomnia. Why? Because I gave up outcomes. I stopped expecting to sleep, to not sleep. It was exhausting, okay? Am I going to sleep tonight? Am I not going to sleep tonight? Anticipating this, anticipating that. It was just, I surrendered. I was done. Whatever happens, happens. When I let go of those outcomes, all that stress, the anxiety, the fear, because I surrendered, it lifted. I started sleeping well because I wasn't attaching myself to anything. Whatever happened, happened. Ladies, there's no such thing as stress or anxiety until you say there is, okay? As I said before, all right? Because what stresses you out does not stress me out, and vice versa. What makes you anxious doesn't make me anxious, and vice versa, all right? It's what we're holding in our minds. It's what we're telling ourselves is the truth, okay? We become conditioned to respond in a certain way. So we respond, but now actually what we're doing is we're reacting because we have this emotional mind, okay? So with our emotional minds, we're so anxious that we just want to feel better. So what we do is we just, without thinking sometimes, we just do whatever. We just do what makes us comfortable and what brings us out of our pain. And that's reacting, okay? It's not responding, because responding is taking that pause, okay? Taking that pause to say, okay, what am I going to do in this instant? It's like you're making more of a logical choice, okay? Whereas with reacting, you're making a choice, but it may not be it's not what you would do if you had a more logical way of thinking. You're thinking more with an emotional mind. Did that make sense, ladies? Anybody need further explanation of that? Put a 6 in the chat, in the feed, if you need to hear that again, or if you need more explanation of what I just said. Okay, so expectations. Let's talk about how do we now let go of some of these expectations that we have. Because the more we expect to be a certain way and we don't get what we expect, the more disappointed we're going to be. So what do we have to do? All right. Awareness is key, ladies. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Have awareness that you're expecting yourself to be a certain way. All right? I love whatever happens, happens. So don't get emotionally attached. Okay, well, let me go to Candy for 1 second. Candy, you put a 6. Does that mean that you need more explanation of what I said before? And Holly, so don't get emotionally attached. Well, it is upsetting, Holly, when, so basically, okay. Emotions. Let's go to emotions for a second. Let's let go of just talking about anxiety. I understand and love that mantra. Got it. Okay. Let's talk about emotions for a second, okay? Emotions. We feel what we're thinking, okay? So if we're thinking happy, excited, we're going to feel happy and excited. Our hearts might be pumping, but this time it's because we're excited. Nothing to do with anxiety, right? If we're mad, all right? When I get mad, I don't know about you, but when I get mad, I get tense. And I just want to punch something or somebody. Like, I feel like, like I get this feeling inside of me like somebody's going to get hit. I just got to punch something, right? When I'm sad, I just want to cry, right? I just want to cry. So our emotions bring about a certain way of being inside of us. We feel a certain way and we want to do something to release these emotions, okay? But our emotions, all right, we still have control of them. We decide, all right? I'm trying to, Holly asks, don't get emotionally attached, all right? So when something happens and it brings out emotion in you, okay? Emotions, science says, okay? Emotions are felt for about 40 seconds. So when you cry, you're sad about 40 seconds. You're crying, you're sad. After you're crying, that's why we feel better, because it's a release. It's a stress release, right? So when you're sad, you may cry, but then you feel a little bit better. I mean, you're still sad about the situation, but you take a deep breath and you let out like all that emotion. And like I said, when you're mad, right? You tense up and you're like, someone's gonna get it. And you may punch a wall, but after you let it out, it's like a release, right? Right. So emotions are there for a reason. They're not bad. There's no such thing as a bad emotion, ladies. God made you, and He made you with these emotions, not to harm you. They're there to help you, all right? You have to understand them and use them to work for you and not against you. That's the thing. So when you feel anxiety, all right, okay, the thing is to feel these emotions, all right? Be with the emotions. Feel them. Be with them. Understand, I'm mad right now. I'm sad right now. I'm anxious right now. But you have a choice in that moment what you're going to do. You have a choice. Do I stay this way? Do I do something about how I feel, the thoughts that are going through my head? Does that make sense, ladies? I understand, easier said than done. But when you understand the mechanics of it all, you understand how emotions work, okay? Emotions are meant to be felt and dealt with. When we feel anxiety, okay? Anxiety, we're meant to just feel it And if you understand anxiety and you know that the anxiety is there for a reason, you take action. But a lot of us, what we're doing is we're feeling the anxiety and we're focused on how it's making us feel. Because those feelings, yeah, I know they're scary. My heart's racing, my stomach, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. I'm so dizzy, I feel like I'm gonna faint. I don't understand how to deal with this. I feel like I can't breathe, because that was a big thing for me. For some reason, my biggest anxiety feeling was always like I felt like I couldn't take a deep breath. I felt like I can't breathe, like everything was constricted, and that used to drive me crazy. So, but when you feel those feelings, okay, what's meant is to understand, hey, this is anxiety. So I have to take some kind of action. But we're not doing that. We're focused on the feeling, the symptom, and now that becomes the issue. What is this? Why am I like this? Oh my gosh, what does this mean? Do I have a blood clot? I mean, that's what I used to think. I must have a blood clot, because why can't I breathe? I don't understand. Why can't I breathe? Am I going to have a heart attack? What's wrong with me? I had to go to the doctor how many times and be checked out so that I can understand that this symptom was just anxiety. Sometimes I wanted to hear, yeah, you have a blood clot. Well, and I know that sounds so stupid, right? But at least I felt like, okay, now it makes sense why I feel this way. Being told that I had anxiety didn't make sense to me because it was an emotion. What do you mean I have anxiety? And how do I get rid of it? Does that all make sense, ladies? Can you relate to that? Put a 7 in the comments if you can understand what I just said. So we feel these emotions, and when we focus on the emotion lingers, we focus on it. We're not using it to our advantage, right? So, okay, let's take like depression. Depression, right, is sadness. Yes, they are bad, Nicole. I know. Physical symptoms, they're the worst, but it's just anxiety. Diffuse the anxiety. Understand what anxiety is. To get rid of that anxiety. All those symptoms are going to go away. They're just symptoms of anxiety, right? Depression, all right? Sadness, overwhelming sadness. I was depressed. Why? Oh, let's see. Why was I depressed? Because I was not functioning in life. I had these beautiful children, this husband, this loving husband who was trying to be so understanding. I had a roof over my head. I mean, I had so many blessings in my life, right? But yet, I couldn't enjoy any of it. Why? Because I kept letting anxiety take control of me. And it was so frustrating. And I couldn't get out of my bed. I felt so useless in life. And I started not enjoying life. And I didn't know how to enjoy life again. And my husband would say, Carla, it's like you forgot how to be happy. And he's absolutely right. I forgot how to be happy. I didn't know how to be happy. I was conditioning my mind to be so focused on my anxiety and how miserable I felt every day that I wasn't counting my blessings. I wasn't looking at anything good. Everything was about my anxiety. I was totally identified with it. So, depression was me being sad about having anxiety, feeling sorry for myself because I didn't know my way out of it, and my life is not how it used to be, and I didn't know how to get myself out of it, and I felt really useless, hopeless. Again, a misuse of the emotion. Listen, ladies, your body, okay, these emotions are going to keep coming on. They're going to stay until you take some kind of action. They're there to tell you something needs to change. You can't expect to overcome anxiety without taking the proper action. It's not going to happen. Anyone I know who has overcome anxiety or who is well on their way to overcoming anxiety has taken special steps to do so. So having awareness, all right, is always key because you can't change what you don't know. Having the expectation of this has to happen in my time, when I say, is just setting yourself up for failure. Because success is in the doing, okay? I've heard someone say, I don't know where I heard this, that you don't have to do anything to overcome anxiety. All you have to do is just stop dwelling on it. I don't know about that because, and I want to say it was somebody, another professional, and I don't know if that's something that you heard. There's really nothing you have to do. See, the thing is, the more we try to fix, okay, the more frustrated we become, the more we try to fix, and things don't happen in our way, the way we expect it to, having the outcome, we get more disappointed. We stay in the anxiety cycle, okay? But you need to take some kind of action. It is in the doing. It's not that you don't do anything. Because if you're conditioned, okay, if you have conditioned yourself to be a certain way, to respond a certain way, okay, to have a certain attitude, all right, if you are holding on to a particular belief that's keeping you stuck, or, you know, you're talking to yourself, like if you're somebody who is doing something, but you're still using such negative self-talk, you're talking yourself out of having success, how do you expect to have success overcoming anxiety? Everything has to line up and work together. And there's certain steps to follow. If all those steps are not working simultaneously, it makes the job difficult. You might have success here, success there, then no success here, and you kind of go up and down. But the path to success is never this, ladies. It's always twists and turns, and yeah, it's always that. But you need to learn from those twists and turns. You need to understand why you're having them. It's not enough to just say, well, I was a smooth path, something happened, and here I am again, and I'm feeling it worse than before. I'm feeling this worse than before. That's because you expected to stay where you were. You thought you were over it. But what you're not understanding is that you're reprogramming, you're rewiring. And if you don't have a total transformation, okay, the next time stress comes into your life, you're just going to go right back into old habits, old behaviors. Does that make sense, ladies? Give me an 8 if that makes sense. You always go back to old behaviors if you don't make a total transformation. Well, I don't see any 8, so does that mean that that doesn't make sense? Okay, Jen, thank you for that. Thank you, Terry. All right. Thank you. I'm glad I got some 8s. All right, good. So I'm just going to move on. So when it comes to overcoming, well, not overcoming anxiety, but expectations, all right? So when you want to overcome expectations, to having these outcomes, letting go. Hi, Mindy. So, letting go of expectations, having awareness that you're living in an expectation, understanding you have a choice in every given moment, and then letting go. Is this expectation? Asking yourself this question. I'm kind of making this up right now because I'm sitting here like, what could they ask themselves? When you come to that fork in the road, okay? Because eventually that's what happens. We come to a fork in the road. We get really present and then we go, gee, okay, I can either respond to this in a way, all right, where I can start thinking with a more logical mind and have some action, take some action. And instead of coming from a place of fear, instead of making myself anxious, what I could do is what response, what action can I take so I respond from a place of peace, where I know that I can be happy with the outcome, that I can accept the outcome, so to speak. So you come to that fork in the road. You have a choice. You have a decision to make. How am I going to respond in this circumstance? If I expect to have peace, is what coming out of my mouth and the action I'm about to take going to bring peace? Can I expect peace from what I'm about to say and from what I'm about to do? Does that make sense, ladies? Like, you have to, ask yourself these questions. In other words, you need to take that pause. Because otherwise, you're just going to react. And you're going to get exactly what you expect. If you expect to feel more anxiety, you're going to get more anxiety. If you don't change, if you don't have that awareness, if you don't take that pause and make a decision to be different in that moment, respond differently. Let go of outcomes. Stop telling yourself, it should be this way. I should, and this should. Stop shoulding. Stop shoulding on yourself. Stop telling yourself when things should happen, how they have to happen. That's why when you're all in the feed asking, well, when did you overcome anxiety? And what are you doing for anxiety? And what? See, those type of posts get me a little nervous because I know what you're doing is you're comparing yourself, right? You want to know what the other ladies in the group are doing. What are they doing to overcome anxiety? Because if they had success and this is what they did, I should have the same success doing what they did, right? You're doing that. I know you're doing that. But ladies, you're all following me, and I had great success overcoming anxiety. And everything I do in the group, all the lives, everything, is everything I did. But the thing is, you have to understand, sorry, I just got like an itch. You have to understand what I did, it worked, but I did it in my timing, all right? It worked in my timing. You have to understand, I did all the footwork. I did all the research. I didn't have anybody like me who did all the research for me, put it into a group, and I could just watch videos or whatnot. I had to do it all myself. It took me a little bit longer. So I'm always hesitant talking to you about how long it took me. It's not the length of time. It's the fact that I did overcome. And I know the way. But you need to give yourself grace. And what I mean by that is let go of expectations, let go of outcomes. Understand that it will happen as long as you make the decision to let it happen. And it is a choice, ladies. And when you make the decision, it means you're ready to dig your heels in, because you're going to have days that you don't feel up to it. It's going to feel hard. And that doesn't mean you give up, because once you give up, it's like, that's what keeps you stuck. You can't expect to overcome if you're not willing to be consistent in what you do. Change habits, change behaviors, right? So expectations. To have expectations is what you feel is necessary. It's what you predict. What you think should happen. It should happen for you to be happy. And when it doesn't go your way, you get disappointed. You get discouraged. You tell yourself, this ain't possible. I told you this wasn't ever going to happen. I knew it. And you get all negative about it. Stop shitting on yourself. Let go of the outcomes. Have that awareness that that's what you're doing. Make a decision of what you're going to do, how you're going to respond instead of react. The action that you're going to take. Understand that I don't need this expectation to make me happy, because if I hold on to this expectation, I'm forcing myself to be a certain way and to have a specific outcome is going to make me not get the result that I want. Ladies, before I go, are there any questions about expectation at all? Having expectations when it comes to anxiety. What you expect, why you're not getting what you're expecting, how to change that expectation. Was everything clear? And if you came on late, ladies, you need to watch this from the beginning. Okay? But does anybody have any questions whatsoever? I'll just give you a moment to... Okay. All right. I don't see any questions. No questions, ladies? You're all good with expectations? All right. So, I came in a little later, but I need to figure out how to take the pause. Yeah, Haley, I talked about that briefly. Yeah. I mean, taking a pause is definitely important, because that is the difference between you reacting and responding to things in life. If that makes sense. And I do kind of go over that. So if you watch this back, you'll understand. I have a hard time with anxiety. Sorry, you just fell over, and I seem to get frustrated before I realize it. Yeah. So I go over a lot of that. We have expectations about how things should be and what we want. And when we don't get that, we get extremely frustrated. So basically, the purpose of this is to understand you need to let go of expectations. You need to let go of outcomes. Stop giving yourself a time frame. Just understand what anxiety is, why you struggle with it, and learn to overcome it. It's going to happen when it happens. And it's going to happen. Oops. Sorry, I have alarms going off. It's going to happen in your time frame, not anybody else's time frame. Okay? So stop comparing yourself to all the other moms. They're living a different life than you. All right? They're on a different journey than you are. The moment you tell yourself, wait a minute, she did breathing and overcame and feels so much better with anxiety. Meanwhile, I do breathing exercises and it does nothing for me. What am I doing wrong? And then you get all hard on yourself, right? Listen, what works for one is not always going to work for the other. But the thing is, sometimes there's a reason why things work for one and not for the other. But I mean, I can't tell you that without working with you. But that's so hard, you say, Michelle. But remember, hard is a mindset thing. Okay? Hard is what you tell yourself. Nothing is hard until you say it is. And if you keep telling yourself things are so hard, you expect things to be hard. This really resonates with me. I expect to have severe anxiety in several situations. I'm sure you do. I'm going to use whatever happens to try to let it go. Thank you so much. Well, Candy, whatever happens is like having acceptance. I didn't use the word, but after awareness, I talk a lot about acceptance. Acceptance is really, really important. It's allowing things to be as they are and not trying to change them, right? I have a whole training on acceptance in the guide section. So if you want to catch that, Candy, please watch that training. And if you have any questions about it, just let me know, okay? But acceptance is really important. And it's basically what really, it's, in other words, as I always say, nothing is until you say it is, right? There's no stress in life. You cause the stress because what's stressful for you is not what's stressful for me. So when you say this is stress or this is anxiety, okay, but that's your stress and anxiety. That may not be something that makes me stressed out and anxious, right? So what that says is we have these expectations of how things should be. And when we tell ourselves this should be this way and they're not, we get frustrated, as I said before, and all those other things. And that's what causes like stress because things are not going your way. It's a control thing, right? We always want to be in control. And we're usually not always in control. There's only certain things you have control of. So, and especially other people. You can't take control of other people. You can only be responsible for who you're being in any given time. What you're thinking and how you're responding to things. All right? So, when you start expecting your husband and your children and your boss and everything to go the way you want it to go and it's not, this is where you start getting stressed out. Let go of expectations. And yes, as Michelle said, it could be hard, okay? It's practice. Because we tell ourselves this is the way it should be, right? But that's you. That's what you're telling yourself and you're telling others. Your should is not everybody else's should. This really resonates with me. Okay, anybody else have anything to say? Any questions? Anything? I'm so glad, Candy, that this is resonating with you, and I hope it's resonating with everybody else, because this is part of your mindset, ladies. Last week, what did I talk about last week? I said it before. Attitude. I talked about attitude, right? Very important. This week we're talking about expectations. It's all part of your mindset. It all matters. Okay? You're welcome, Paula. All right. It doesn't look like there's any questions. So I'm going to go. But if you come up with any questions, just put it down in the comments, or you can message me, and I'll answer them later. Okay, ladies? All right. Be well, and I'll see you next time, and I'll see you in the group. All right. Have a good one, ladies. You take care. Bye.